Hello and welcome to this short induction video to help you use the equipment here in the gym safely and effectively. There's a gym etiquette poster on the wall which details the sort of things you need to consider whilst you're in here, the main essence of which is based around being considerate to the other gym users. Two key points on there are the wiping down of the equipment after you've used it and the tidying up of any free weights or anything so that other gym users don't trip over them, and generally leave the gym in the sort of condition you'd hope to find it in when you arrived. Okay, so I will now take you through the various pieces of equipment in the gym and how to use them. Okay, so rowing machine. First thing to adjust on here is the fan at the front, and that governs the resistance. So that is on a little slider like this, and if you have it positioned between 6 and 7, that most closely simulates outdoor rowing. So that's your most realistic kind of resistance if you were rowing down a river or anything. Second thing, feet, and these need to be in the footrests, and this strap needs to go across the end of your laces. So actually for me that's a little bit too far down, so to adjust that, pull that forward, that slides up, make sure it's locked back in, and then you pop your foot in and this strap goes across the end of your laces and you tighten it up. You need to be fairly firmly fixed in because you will flex with your toes a bit during the rowing technique. Both feet in. Next up, your grip on the bar, and that should be in a claw grip. So quite naturally you'd hold it in a fist grip like that, but you need it towards the end of your fingers. The reason for that really is so you get a bit more distance on every row that you do. So like that in the end of your fingers. Before you start, you'll switch on your display, so you'll push menu for that. Lights up, top one, just row. Various different options on here. The key two are the very top figure, which is the time, and that will count you up from 0, so you can go for however long you might like to. And the one below it is your rate. So that gives you a time for how long it would take you to row 500 meters. So the lower that time is, the faster you're going and the faster you would row 500 meters. So a little bit about rowing technique. Claw grip as mentioned. Then nice flat back, and you push with your legs, pull with your arms, back with your arms, back with your legs. Legs, arms, arms, legs. And away you go. Okay, so treadmill. First thing you do, obviously step up onto the belt, and you need to then attach the cutout clip. And that needs to be securely fastened to your clothing. Make sure it is properly attached. The idea of this is that if you stumble or were to fall or anything, it cuts the belt, stops it moving pretty much straight away, so it can't carry on spinning around and hurt you or anything like that. So assuming you're nicely attached, you then come across and push quick start. Gives you sort of a 3-second or so countdown, and then the belt will very gradually start moving. And it always starts up extremely slowly, so probably 1 mile an hour or something. So to speed up your speed, push plus on the speed button, and it will gradually increase your speed. And the minus will obviously slow you down a little. The other thing you can do on here is adjust the incline, so you can do some uphill walking or jogging or something. And there's an incline button. The up arrow obviously increases that and literally lifts the front of the machine up. And the down button will lower that back to flat again. You can mess around with your speed and incline as you're going along, obviously using the manual settings. Two different ways to stop. Obviously the stop button on your display there, and there's a big red one in the middle, which is more of an emergency stop button that you can hit if you've hurt yourself or something. Another way to get off the belt if you have hurt your leg or pulled a hamstring or something while you're running along is to straddle the belt, and for that you use these handles. Jump your feet off and off the moving belt, and then you're in a nice stable position to push stop. Okay, so exercise bike. First thing you need to adjust on here is the seat height, and to make sure you've got that correct, you need to sit on the saddle, pop your foot on the pedal and lower the pedal to its lowest possible point, and you should then just have a very slight angle at the knee. So there's quite a pronounced angle there, so the seat is a little bit too low for me. To adjust it, you obviously get off, pull the lever out, and this slides up, and a little slider like that. Make sure it's locked back in, hop back on, and now when the pedals at its lowest point, there's just a slight bend in my knee. So the seat's in the correct position. To get started, you need to begin pedaling initially, and that lights up the display. That will give you a little beep to let you know it's ready, and then you will push quick start in the middle there, and the time will count up from 0 in front of you. And the only other thing to adjust on here is the resistance. So you can obviously make pedaling much more difficult by pushing the plus button there. That increases the resistance on the wheel and obviously makes it more difficult. And to reduce that resistance, push the minus, and that takes the pressure off the wheel and obviously makes pedaling a bit more straightforward. A couple of different handle positions. You can sit in a bit more of an upright position like this, or down on the armrest like that. And that really is up to your own kind of preference. And so you're all ready, and you just carry on. Okay, so cross trainer, got to be slightly careful when you're getting onto this one, because when you do tread on the foot plates, the machine moves, and also these arms move. So just be slightly careful when you get on. Take hold of the handles, feet on and in the middle of the foot plates. And then you need to start skating or kind of cross-country skiing is the sort of motion you'll feel. And then the display will light up for you. So just skate your legs and it beeps and lights up. Then all you need to do is push quick start, and it counts you up from 0 up here, and you can go for as long as you like, and kind of keep an eye on your time stats from there. The other thing to adjust on here is the resistance on the wheel at the back, and that will obviously make it slightly harder or slightly easier. So push the plus, and the resistance is increased back there, and it's much harder to skate your legs. And the minus takes that resistance off and makes movement much easier. Two different hand positions. You can have these ones here with your arms static, and they're not involved in the exercise at all. And these ones where you pull and sort of assist your legs, but it also gives you a bit more of a whole body kind of workout. The final thing on here is body position. You don't want to be too hunched over, so be in a nice upright position with a flat back. Okay, so lat pull down and seated row machine. One key thing to adjust on here is the knee pads. So for one of them, it goes down on your knees, and for the other one, you rest your knees against it. And I'll show you that in a second. So first exercise, lat pull down. For this one, this needs to be on top of your legs to stop you being lifted up when you pull the weight down. So to adjust this, pull out the yellow pin, and this is on a slider. So initially, pull it up really high so you've got plenty of space to get underneath. Then sit down with your knees beneath the knee pads, pull the pin out, and it lowers down, and make sure it's clicked. It will make that clicky noise and lock back into place. You can then reach up and grab the bar, but before you do any exercises, you've got to make sure the weight stack is on a nice light weight. And that is easily adjusted again with a yellow pin, and that will pull out and slide back in, and make sure obviously that's right in and locked tight. So you're now ready to do the exercise. Nice light weight as mentioned, wide grip on the bars, sit back down, knees underneath the knee pads, and then you pull down to the top of your chest and slowly back up. Down to the top of your chest, slowly back up, and then when you're finished, you gently stand up till the weights clink back together, and you can move on then to the seated row. For that one, we need to lower the knee rest, and you pull your pin out and lower that right down, because for this one your knees will need to be up against it, because you're pulling the weight like this and your force is going that way. So this obviously prevents you sliding closer to the machine. The handle for this is on a little hook here, so you grab that, sit with a nice flat back, so you don't want to be curled over or anything, nice and upright, and pull to your chest, slowly back, pull to your chest, slowly back, and then when you're finished, put that back over. Okay, so multi-press machine, 3 key exercises that you do on this one, and also 3 separate things to adjust. First thing before you get started, always make sure you're on a very light weight, and you do so on the weight stack with the yellow pin. So you pull that out and then slide that back in on a nice low, very comfortable weight. First one requires the bench to be flat, and that is chest press, so obviously does your chest. So for that one, you lay down nice and flat, take hold of the handles, either option, and slowly push up and slowly back down. The points of these handles should be in the proximity of your shoulder ball here, so you don't want to be pushing up from miles behind you or anything like that. Okay, so next up, incline press. And for that, obviously, we need to create an incline by moving the seat. Another yellow lever, which you pull out, and then this will slide. You slide that along and click it in. Make sure it's locked in firmly. And that means you'll need to adjust the handles as well, because obviously, if you try and get your arms under like that, you can't possibly get them down low enough. So you also adjust the handle position, and that's done on another yellow lever here. Pull that out, slide that up, and make sure it clicks in. Probably one more actually. There we go, clicked in like that. And then you're underneath, and from here you can do incline bench. Again, handles in the proximity of your shoulder, so you're not pushing out miles in front of you or anything. The third exercise on here is shoulder press, and for that you need the seat fully vertical, and then your handles will adjust again using your yellow lever, and then you'll sit there like that and push up and slowly down. Okay, so leg extension and leg curl machine. Fair few different adjustments on these, and I'll run you through them in a second. First one, weight stack. That is on a pin, and you pull it out and slot it in, and I've adjusted that to make it as light as possible, particularly as I'm not warmed up and I'm just demonstrating for you. Where you completing an exercise, it would be a great idea to start on a very low weight anyway. So first up, leg extension, and that works your quads, so the front of your thighs. First thing you need to do is adjust the backrest, and to test its positioning, you would sit on the seat, and this pad should rest against the back of your leg. So at the moment, I'm sat quite a long way too far forward. So you jump back off, and this has a little lever. You pop it down, and the seat will slide. Make sure it's clicked in, and then when I sit back on, that rests against the back of my leg. So for leg extension, you will be hooking your feet behind this pad, and that should rest on the junction between your shin and your laces, kind of there. For comfort, there is a bit of movement in that, and you can adjust it using that yellow lever. So you pull it out, and the pad will sort of rotate, and it just changes the distance slightly, and just make sure that's in a comfortable position. Again, rests about there. Okay, so once you're on and you're all adjusted, your weight's on nice and light, you sit with your back flat against the back pad, hold the handles, and then take the weight and gently extend your legs up and slowly lower back down. Gently up, slowly lower back down. We'll now look at the second exercise, which is the leg curl, and that does your hamstrings, so the backs of your legs here. So the backrest remains in exactly the same position, so you don't need to adjust that for this one. You then sit on your seat, and the first thing you need to do is get this pad down onto your legs, because when you perform this exercise, it does feel like your thighs will be lifted off the pad a little. There's a yellow handle, pull that, and this lowers down. Make sure it's locked in and it's resting against your thighs there. The second thing you need to adjust is the position of this pad, and that swings up out in front of you like that, and that's done on this lever. So you get your legs out the way, pull that, so it clicks right in like that, and then pop your feet back, heels up, and you'll notice on this one that the pad, instead of being in front like it is for leg extension, is behind your legs, and that should sit just above where your shoe ends. From there, you then hold the handles, pull your heels down towards your bottom, and then slowly back up. Down towards your bottom, slowly back up. Okay, so squat rack. Fair few moving parts on this one, and a couple of safety features which are really important. First thing, the bar. That is actually on a counterbalance, and it remains parallel at all times, so you don't need to worry about dropping weights off one end or the other or anything like that. To release the bar, you have to do a little twist with your wrists. So just for demonstration purposes, you grab it up, twist the hooks out, and then it slides up and down nice and freely. And then make sure it's hooked back in. Down here with the yellow handles, these are for your safety. So they're adjusted like that. And the idea of those is they are a stopper for the bar. So if you get stuck in a low position on a squat, for example, you just drop down a little bit and these automatically hook the bar up and take all the strain off of you so you can free yourself. So I'll just quickly show you how that works. Up here, so down you go in your squat. It gets a bit heavy and you can't get up from there. You just drop it, and instead of dropping and squashing you, it hooks perfectly onto here and you're completely safe and free of the bar and ready to carry on. So we'll just move that back up. And I'll just demonstrate a squat for induction purposes. Nice grip on the bar, duck underneath and take the weight across your shoulders. Before you do that, you've got to check the bar is at the correct height in the first place. If it's up too high, you get underneath and you can't take the strain and lift the bar. So you've got to make sure that the bar is actually below the height of your shoulder. Okay, so that's a perfect starting position. Grip the bar, hands just beyond shoulder width apart, duck underneath, across it goes, and you take the weight across the top of your shoulders, push through your legs and twist your hands to release the hooks. With feet shoulder width apart and a nice flat back, bend your knees down till your legs are parallel with the floor and then push slowly back up. Down, not too low, push back up. And then when you're finished, hook that back on and you can step free and clear of the bar. So I've demonstrated with no weight whatsoever. If you did want to add some weights, you do so with the discs which are on the racks behind the machine. You slide them off with the handy kind of rack on the back of the machine and slide them back on. They don't have clips because the bar remains parallel at all times, so you don't need to worry about fastening these on because they can't fall off. One key thing to remember is obviously if you've got 2.5 kilograms on this side, you need to add the same weight onto the other side of the machine. Otherwise, even though it won't tilt, it will feel slightly lopsided. With squats and the squat rack in general, you do have to be very familiar with whichever exercise you'd like to do on here and make sure you do know the techniques really well and always start with a nice light weight so you've warmed up properly before using it. Okay, so cable machine, lots of different exercise options on this one and it adjusts in various ways which I'll show you in a second. There are some exercise guidelines on a poster on the machine. Whichever one you choose, make sure you're very familiar with the correct technique before you attempt it. The other thing to remember is to always start on a very light weight. So we'll begin by adjusting the weight stacks. On this one there are 2 weight stacks and some exercises you do will need one handle and some will use both. Obviously if you are using both, you've got to make sure the weight stacks are set to the same weight. These are easily adjustable with the pin, which you pull out and then slide in. And obviously you've got exactly the same on the other one and make sure the numbers correspond. The other thing you adjust on here are the slider housings themselves, and they are on a lever like that and slide up and down. Make sure it's clicked in and you adjust that to the correct height for whichever exercise you've chosen. And again, if you're using both handles for kind of chest press or something, you do need to make sure these housings are at the same height and they do have a number and you can check that that corresponds across both so you know that both of them are definitely the same height. There are various different adjustments that you can attach to the clip here and you adjust that with a little clip like that. So you unclip and reclip and there's the various fittings are hooked on the machine in the middle there out of the way and they correspond again with whichever exercise you might have chosen. Okay, so free weights bench, often used obviously with the dumbbells on the rack over there. Loads of different things you can do. Obviously in terms of your exercise choice, make sure you're very familiar with the techniques that you need to do that exercise safely. It's really important. You can adjust this and certain exercises require it being adjusted and I'll just show you one of those and so we can talk about how the bench moves and so on. So you can lift up the back for chest flies, for example. So there's a little lever here and you lift it up and make sure that's locked in and that gives you a nice angle on the back. You then sit on here and you would do chest flies. When you're doing chest flies and you do have some weight, it does feel like you're slipping off the front a little bit. And for that reason, the front tilts up as well. And you do that using this lever here. So then you sit on here and you feel in a much more comfortable position. And so that's just one example of one exercise you might be able to do on here. The other important thing to remember with the dumbbells is putting them away after you've used them, particularly so you wouldn't have to put them away between sets of a certain exercise, but you don't want to leave some over there and some here as a potential trip hazard for other users. So do make sure you put them back safely on the rack after you finish your particular exercise. Thanks for watching. I hope you found it useful. If you do have any further questions or require any additional information, please speak to your accommodation manager.